What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are counting down because Dallas Cowboys training camp is just around the corner. Yes, soon enough, America's team will be out on the left coast, that is Oxnard, California, getting ready for the 2021 NFL season. And we're getting ready lately here at the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Make sure you do subscribe. And by the way, thank you, all of you. We recently passed 10,000 subscribers here at Blogging the Boys. Lots of big plans in store for this football season. Very excited. We love you all. But to kind of get ready for training camp, we have been looking at the Dallas Cowboys roster position by position in our training camp preview series. You can go back in our feed to look at other episodes if you want to look at other position groups. Today, we are talking about the players, the men, all up in the middle. That's right, the beef. We were talking about defensive tackles. We talked about the ends a little while ago, and now it's time to give some love to the interior. Now, this is a position that the Cowboys themselves, I don't want to say kind of hate, but really haven't devoted a high level of resources to in recent history. The Cowboys did draft 2 defensive tackles this year, and that's fair. That's certainly something to note. And to be clear here, while the Cowboys aren't necessarily spending first-round picks at the defensive tackle spot, they did spend a second-round pick on a defensive tackle 2 years ago. We will obviously discuss Tristan Hill in just a bit, but there are a lot of other players to consider when it comes to the interior as well. Now, by the way, if you are a fan of Dallas Cowboys defensive tackles, just so you know, make sure you do subscribe to the Blogging the Boys podcast network. We are available on all major podcast platforms. We do have a show every single week, every Tuesday, with one of the greatest defensive tackles in Dallas Cowboys franchise history, Tony Casillas. You can hear TC every Tuesday with myself on the 750, but right now let's talk about some different defensive tackles. Here are all of them that are currently on the Dallas Cowboys roster. We remind you that these are listed alphabetically. Do not come at us. We're just going, but I was going to say by Robert's Rules of Order. That has nothing to do with alphabeticalness. But either way, Quinton Bohanna, this year's rookie draft pick, one of the rookies, obviously, the team drafted. We've got Austin Faildu, difficult last name to pronounce, but I totally nailed it. Shout out to me. Neville Gallimore, Justin Hamilton, Tristan Hill, Osa Odighizuwa, and you could throw Brent Urban in this mix, but obviously he's got some position flexibility. We did discuss him in a different capacity when we talked about defensive end, so kind of an honorable mention in that sense. Now, when we look at what the defensive tackles brought to the Cowboys last year, there were some good things, but there was a lot of bad. Now, I mentioned early on that the Cowboys haven't thrown a lot of resources at the defensive tackle position, and last year I was singing their praises because last year the Cowboys went out and they signed Gerald McCoy, they signed Dontari Poe, and neither of those things worked out for very different reasons. Dontari Poe was one of the bigger busts that the Cowboys have had in free agency in some time. Really, free agents that they have signed at the defensive tackle position have not necessarily panned out in recent memory. Not that there's necessarily been a great homegrown player there. Again, it is a position where the Cowboys have struggled generally for a long time now. And Gerald McCoy, it's so hard to call that a failure. I suppose in a literal sense it is because, obviously it didn't work out. But I think we all think Gerald McCoy would have been awesome for the Cowboys, both on the field, along the interior, and within the locker room. I think especially as the Cowboys went through the problems that they did in 2020, Gerald McCoy would have been a stable presence, kind of that veteran. Last year when the Cowboys signed him, I likened him a lot to Mike McCarthy going out and getting Charles Woodson with the Green Bay Packers, kind of that guy who'd been there, done that, was searching for his Super Bowl late in his career. And unfortunately it didn't happen as Joe McCoy was hurt very soon. Tristan Hill, who we talked about, we'll get into a little bit more, was also lost for the season due to an injury a little bit later than Joe McCoy. Actually, people forget Tristan Hill was lost in the very same game that Dak Prescott was against the New York Giants. And so there was a lot of turnover very quickly. That's kind of the point here, that the defensive tackle position, if your memories of it are not that great, it's because a lot of the top players, a lot of the players at the top of the depth chart went down. And when you're playing rookies like Neville Gallimore, who did play very well last season, all things considered, it's generally not going to be great. And I want to give a huge shout out to Neville Gallimore because, like Tony Casillas, he was a defensive tackle from Oklahoma that wore number 75 for the Cowboys, although he ultimately switched, which kind of messed with the whole name of our show. But whatever, we're not bitter about it. Neville Gallimore did play very well, not just all things considered, but just in general. He was a player. We remember the 2020 draft class for the Cowboys. Everybody was excited about CeeDee Lamb. Everybody was excited about Trayvon Diggs. Everybody was excited about Neville Gallimore, and they all delivered in their own special ways. And so it is very exciting to think about what Neville Gallimore can do in the future, certainly in 2021 for the Cowboys as he enters year 2. Now, there are a lot of other things to be excited about because, as mentioned, Gerald McCoy is still, at the time of this recording at least, a pending free agent in the National Football League. Dontari Poe we'll see what his NFL future ultimately has in store. Tristan Hill, I'm very, very interested in, but Neville Gallimore is somebody who I think we definitely have the arrow pointing up on as 2021 begins. Other situations to kind of monitor here in 2021 is that beyond obviously having Neville Gallimore in year 2, the Cowboys did add Brent Urban in free agency, who we've mentioned. By the way, Brent Urban was Pro Football Focus's 22nd ranked interior defender throughout all of last season. Does that necessarily tell us that he's going to be a monster, that he's going to be amazing, that he's going to be something supremely special? I don't want to read too much into that, but it is worth noting that, he is certainly somebody that might be a bit underrated in a lot of senses. So be very excited about Brent Urban. By the way, Brent Urban is my sleeper pick for kind of low-key, under-the-radar Cowboy to really pop on Hard Knocks. Remember, I said that here. But the Cowboys obviously did also draft Quinton. Bohanna offers a true one-tech, kind of that trash can run stuffer in the middle. We're all very excited. If you haven't seen Matt Minich's film breakdown on Quinton Bohanna here on the YouTube channel, make sure you do go back in our feed and look. We do have breakdowns on the Dallas Cowboys draft class, all the players that you want to see, lots of fun stuff to look forward to, and we'll obviously have a lot more as training camp unfolds as well. But as mentioned, Quinton Bohanna, not the only defensive tackle that the Cowboys drafted in 2021, as they drafted another one in the 3rd round for the 2nd year in a row in Odighizuwa. So you've got depth, and that's a really important thing, because we saw last year that depth was tested, not only in Gerald McCoy being hurt and Tristan Hill being hurt, but in Dontari Poe not being very good. So you have to have depth, and that's something we've talked about in different capacities when it comes to the Cowboys. It's why we've said, while I understand if you want to, say, trade Leighton Vander Esch, it might not necessarily make a lot of sense because he is a stable point of depth on the team here in 2021. Now, looking forward to the future, that might not necessarily be the case, but you get the overall idea. But another situation to kind of pay some mind to, I think, is, look, I'm a huge Antoine Woods fan. I'm going to assume that you are a huge Antoine Woods fan, and I think we're all very excited to root Antoine Woods on throughout the rest of his NFL career. Obviously, he's no longer a member of the Dallas Cowboys, and Antoine is somebody who came in, joined the team a couple of years ago, and really just kind of did the dirty work, and that's something that is very difficult to accomplish as a defensive tackle, something that a lot of D tackles before Antoine really failed at, and so that's why I think he kind of endeared himself to a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans. And so in no way am I saying that Antoine Woods being gone is a good thing in a vacuum. We will all miss him. However, you can look at players like that, I think, and sometimes view them as progress stoppers in the sense of every snap that goes to Antwaun Woods is one less snap that goes to, in this year's case, Osa Odighizuwa or Quinton Bohanna in different situations and things like that. And so right now we are looking at an interior for the Dallas Cowboys that needs to develop and grow, not just quickly, but over time as well. So you're kind of trying to accomplish two different things. And so I understand they wanted to move on from Antwaun Woods. And so there is a positive in him, obviously not being around, where lots of different players on this defense, obviously along the interior, are going to have opportunities that may not otherwise have had them. Now, I think if we kind of laid out pros and cons for the Cowboys defensive tackle situation entering training camp, I think the one real con might be Tristan Hill. It's difficult. And Tristan Hill is obviously somebody who's had a really rough go so far in his NFL career, entering his third season in the NFL, obviously with the Dallas Cowboys after being a second-round pick. And in case you forgot, Tristan Hill was a second-round pick, but he was the Cowboys' first selection in 2019 because they did not have their first-round pick, having traded it away from Amari Cooper the season before. And so, and again, if you don't remember that, I know it was, it's 2 years ago, but that can be a long time sometimes. That was a really telegraphed pick. There were a lot of Cowboys fans at the time who wanted Juan Thornhill, who wanted Taylor Rapp, who wanted a safety, who wanted that to finally be the pick, that position to finally be the pick for the Cowboys. And it wasn't. It was very telegraphed again that it was going to be Tristan Hill. If you follow the draft coverage and things like that, that always encircles the Cowboys every year. And so Tristan Hill, his rookie season, not only really disappointed in general, but really disappointed because the Cowboys were so high on him. The Cowboys kind of, through the manner in which the pick was telegraphed, created these insane expectations for him in the minds of many, however unfair those ultimately were. And so Tristan Hill, there were the reports of not character concerns, but just issues with him and his overall kind of blending with the Cowboys locker room throughout his rookie season. And, at this time a year ago, we were all talking about, the Cowboys defensive tackle position, saying, okay, they've got Joe McCoy, they've got Dontari Poe, they've got rookie Neville Gallimore, they have Antwaun Woods, who they did bring back late in the game, what's going to happen with Tristan Hill? And I'm not trying to tell you, I'm not going to sell you a false bill of goods and say that Tristan Hill was amazing last year. But I do think that Tristan Hill did come on. He did have a jump and a noticeable jump and a noticeable progress or a point of progress, which, look, I mean, maybe your expectations of Tristan Hill are still very high, and that's fair. He's a second-round pick. I mean, if you're a second-round pick by year 3 in the NFL, which is where Tristan Hill currently is, you should be a starter. That's the idea around second-round picks in the National Football League, and we do have this question about Tristan Hill, and some of that isn't even Tristan's fault. It has to do with his injury and obviously a number of other circumstances, but it does take us to this point where we have to wonder, especially entering training camp, because this is the time, is Tristan Hill going to be on this team? Because you look at it, and we've talked about before when we talked about wide receivers, I mean, positions where you're going to go long, positions where you're not going to go long. And I ultimately don't think that it makes financial sense to cut Tristan Hill because he's only on the 3rd year of his rookie contract. After this season, technically, he will be eligible for a contract extension. I'm not trying to go down that hypothetical, but it's not, I think you're cutting him to make a point, and maybe that is the point that the Cowboys want to make. Maybe you're of that mindset, right? Like, cut him, make that point, kind of, send that message to the locker room, whatever. There's logic to that. There's an argument in that sense, especially if we're in the situation where the Cowboys were with Tristan Hill a year ago. But I do think that there has been enough distance between the rookie version of who this player was and where we are in the here and now that might not be as necessary. And so overall, I certainly think that pressure is high on Tristan Hill to have tremendous might be a stretch, but a notable, a significant, pretty good training camp because there's a lot of competition. And that's really the most important thing, because when Tristan Hill entered the landscape of the Dallas Cowboys, there wasn't a lot of competition, right? There hasn't been a lot of competition along the interior of this defensive line. And there still isn't, a lot of notable competition, but there are a lot of bodies, especially when you consider Brent Urban obviously having that flexibility across the entire line. You've got Neville Gallimore in year 2. You've got obviously Odighizuwa. You've got Quinton Bohanna. You've got to kind of, you've got to make a decision somehow, some way. And so if Tristan Hill isn't going to be the guy for you, you have to decide that now. And we've seen the Cowboys kind of drag their feet with this. And I don't want to put Tristan in this box because when I say this name, it's going to make you kind of feel some negative things. But right now, when you look at very positive Dallas Cowboys first-round draft picks in recent memory, the most positive of which is, let's call it Zach Martin since 2014. That's one end of the spectrum. And when you look at the other end of the spectrum, as I get that graphic off the screen so we can show you the spectrum here, you've got Zach Martin, the most positive possible end of the spectrum, the most positive Dallas Cowboys first-round pick in recent memory. Who's the worst? Who's the most negative player that the Cowboys have taken in the first round in recent memory? I know that people, there's some people who are not that high on Leighton Vander Esch, but the answer is Taco Charlton, right? Unfortunately. So this is your spectrum here. Unfortunately, what hand did I say was? I think I said this was Zach Martin. So if this is Zach Martin and this is Taco Charlton, right now, I think Tristan Hill is kind of right where this microphone is, right? He's not quite at Taco Charlton territory. And I think last year he was kind of trending towards the middle, like where the buttons on my shirt are, right? Like he was getting there and then he got hurt and everything gets pushed back. And that's an unfortunate thing, but that's the reality when it comes to life in the NFL. And so do I think Tristan Hill will be cut? No, because I don't think it makes sense. But I do think that this could be a quote unquote make or break, quote unquote making a leap, quote unquote, serious. It's the most important season of Tristan Hill's NFL career, however short it is. And I know that sounds overly dramatic, but there's no denying that he has to have an important year, or he has to have a year in this important year to really justify his spot within this overall rank, because it's very possible that Neville Gallimore starts to separate himself from Tristan Hill this year. I don't think that the bar to clear is that high for Neville Gallimore. And so there's a lot riding on 2021 for Tristan Hill. And, mentioning Neville Gallimore, something we wanted to kind of ask you, we want to hear your answers in the comments. Who is your kind of surprise defensive tackle, right? Like, who's your player that you could see really just kind of like the way Antoine Woods did when he first joined the Cowboys? Who's somebody you could kind of see saying, man, you know what? All right, I'm pumped. I'm surprised. And, I'll give you the names just so you can have. And we will count Brent Urban here. I know he's not on this list. Justin Hamilton has had some nice moments. But I really think I don't think that Quinton Bohanna is going to see enough opportunities to be this answer. I think the answer is Osa Odighizuwa, honestly, because Osa is somebody, if you follow the money, you follow the prioritization in the NFL. He's a 3rd-round pick, right? So we know that the Cowboys obviously believe in him to a strong degree. They wanted to get him obviously on their team early on, even though they had 3 third-round picks. So Osa Odighizuwa has the pedigree. He also has opportunity because we've seen the Cowboys play their young defensive tackles in recent memory. Now, part of the reason for, say, Neville Gallimore getting playtime last year was the fact that, Gerald McCoy was hurt, Dontari Poe was bad, Tristan Hill was hurt, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that exact sequence of opportunity might not unfold for Odighizuwa, but I do think that he can create it. I talked about how Neville Gallimore might be able to separate himself from Tristan Hill here and now. I think it's very possible that Odighizuwa might be able to separate himself in the here and now. And if you do want to read into this thing, I would caution against this, but Tristan Hill is a player who was drafted by the previous administration for the Cowboys, right? Like, Tristan Hill is not a Mike McCarthy guy. Tristan Hill is not a Dan Quinn guy. But you know who is a Mike McCarthy and more specifically a Dan Quinn guy? Because even Neville Gallimore is not a Dan Quinn guy, right? We're talking about the current Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator. Me, you, all of us here in this imaginary, it's not imaginary, what am I saying? This real world that is the Blogging the Boys YouTube like flow here that connects us all together. We all have a lot of belief in Dan Quinn, right? Like that's what we believe in. We believe that Dan Quinn is going to be the answer to whatever legitimate degree for the Dallas Cowboys defense in 2021. We believe in Dan Quinn's vision for the Dallas Cowboys in 2021. We believe in Dan Quinn's selection of different players. This draft was really about Dan Quinn. Hey, you like Nishan Wright? Nobody had ever heard of him before the NFL draft. We believe you, Dan Quinn. And so far, while the sample size is not exactly very large, looking at that one very specific example, okay, hey, you saw something, Dan. You were right. So when we kind of get back and focus things through the lens of Dan Quinn and Mike McCarthy and the current administration, not just in general within the Cowboys organization from their whole coaching staff's perspective, but specifically with the defensive coordinator and Dan Quinn, the main guy in Dan Quinn's mind is Osa Odighizuwa. That's his dude. Brent Urban is a free agent that the Cowboys went and acquired under the regime of Dan Quinn. And so that's, again, I want to like pump the brakes. Like I don't, not like pump, but like, you know, when you're coming to a red light and it's like, you're slow in the brakes. Like, I just want to kind of slow the brakes down. Like we're coming to this red light. We're going to have a conversation like, oh yeah, you know, whatever. I don't want to necessarily say that Neville Gallimore, Tristan Hill, or anybody who, you know, predate the Dan Quinn ride in Dallas don't have a shot at, you know, seeing legitimate playtime, but it is worth mentioning that guys, you know, who enter different teams in different situations, they want to play their guys. That's why you see a lot of times different coaches go out and get players that they've been linked to in the past. Dan Quinn went out and got Keanu Neal and DeMonte KZ. So if you're a Dan Quinn guy, if all things are equal, is my point. I don't want to be too dramatic with this. Dan Quinn is who is this, if I could speak, Dan Quinn is the defensive coordinator who oversaw the Cowboys when Osa Odighizuwa was drafted. And that is something that separates Osa Odighizuwa. So in the lens of talking about who could be our surprises, who could really shock us, who could kind of come out of nowhere, my whole point with this Dan Quinn bit is that could create the opportunity for Osa Odighizuwa to ultimately be that guy. But I still firmly believe not just in Neville Gallimore, but in Tristan Hill. And that's somebody who I'm really excited to watch. We talked about, obviously, Hard Knocks, but you know, I'll be out at training camp the final week of July. Like I said, if you're going to be there, let me know. My Twitter, my DMs are open on Twitter. You can hit me up. My Twitter and Instagram are both at RJ Ochoa. We can do some sort of Blogging the Boys meetup if we get enough people out there. But that's somebody who I'm very excited to watch in training camp is Tristan Hill, to see not just how he's doing, but what kind of opportunities he's getting. I really want to see what kind of opportunities is Osa Odighizuwa getting. Where's Brent Urban getting all of his opportunities? I mean, there's a lot of questions. This is a position with a lot of, not question marks, but a lot of dots that we have to connect. Like you remember when you were a kid and you would get like, I don't know if they were in coloring books, but I remember getting this in like first grade. It was like a piece of paper and it had a bunch of dots. And you had to like, maybe it was a connect the dots. I've just now realized this, but like, it was one of those things where you like connected the dots and it made like a horse, or, you know, it made something cool, made like an awesome picture. Right now, the defensive tackle position for the Cowboys, it's a bunch of dots. And I really want to go connect them and kind of figure out like, oh, this is where that player is going to be played. Like, oh, this is where that's going to happen here. I'm very excited to connect the dots when it comes to the defensive tackles on the Dallas Cowboys entering 2021. You thought that I couldn't make the dot connecting thing make sense, but I did. And I'm very excited about that. So my name's RJ Ochoa. You know me, of course, from Blogging the Boys. Once again, just a huge thank you from all of us at BTB to all of you for helping us pass 10,000 subscribers here on our YouTube channel. We work very hard and we take it very seriously to give you the best Dallas Cowboys content possible. I've said this many times in a number of different ways, on the side, off the side, on podcasts, on videos, etc. My favorite thing and the most important thing about my job when it comes to Blogging the Boys is that we are all a family, and my job is to enhance that, right? Like, this is an experience for all of us. The way we enjoy the Dallas Cowboys, the way we talk about the Dallas Cowboys, the way we experience the Dallas Cowboys together. We live in a day and age where it is so cool that we can all kind of be together like this. And that's something that I have a lot of love about, and I take a lot of pride, and I'm really excited about everything that we have planned for the 2021 season when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. We've been working our tails off because this isn't work. This is so much fun, talking about our favorite thing in the world, which is the Dallas Cowboys. So that about does it. I think so. Yeah. No more dots, no more nothing. So do me a favor. All right. Just have the best day ever. That would mean a lot to me if you had the best day of all time. You know why? Because you deserve it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. See you next time.